Welcome to the Disruptive Podcast by Minority Innovation Weekend. Minority Innovation Weekend is a weekend summit dedicated to aiding innovators of color launch tech-focused startups, exploring emerging technologies and showcasing tech startups that have a founder or co-founder of color. During each episode, we will discuss innovation, tech startups, and more. Minority Innovation Weekend. One weekend, endless opportunities. Please visit www.minorityinnovationweekend.org to find out how to connect with us and to register for upcoming events.
Welcome to the MIW Disruptive Podcast, hosted by Sir Walter and Jerome. Today we have a very special guest. She's a research faculty member of Rochester Institute of Technology. She's also a podcaster herself. She has the Unpolished MBA, and she's the founder and chief strategist at TPM Focus, which is a multidisciplinary management consulting firm. We're talking about Monique Mills. How are you?
I am well. Thank you for that intro.
Hey, not a problem. We can play that every morning.
I'm well. Thank you for having me.
Hey, Monique, in your online presence, you have PMP in your title. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I'm a certified project management professional. And that's one of those things where it wasn't required in my field, but it was something I thought I needed. I can tie that back to like everything that's on my resume. So sometimes people look at my resume as like, okay, oh my God, why'd you do all this stuff? I'm like, because I'm a Black woman and because I need that to get into rooms and to get into conversations and to get my businesses funded and X, Y, and Z, right? That's why. And I feel that was the same thing with the PMP. I was involved a lot in construction and things. I'm an engineer, and I was involved a lot in construction and other things in the engineering field. And it was just something that was just kind of that, right, when I showed up, right? And it's just one of those things. So yeah, it's been helpful. It's actually very helpful in business as well.
Okay. So also, it seems like you've been a serial entrepreneur. So like, what made you make the leap from corporate industry to building your own consulting management firm?
Well, yeah, I guess I would call myself a serial entrepreneur now, but when I was in my engineering career and I would say I still am, even though I have a management consulting company, but I mostly work with tech companies. But in my engineering career, I started a real estate business back then. And I can say that was my first taste of earning money outside of a W-2. And so even though I did that on the side, I started out as an investor. And when people saw that I knew what I was doing, other people would ask me for help. And then so I just decided to go ahead and set up the business and help other people. So it wasn't just for, my own investments. And I still have that business to this day. So that was my first involvement in it. It's been almost 17 years I've had the real estate business. So I knew how to sell. That's for one, which most engineers don't. And so I got a lot of experience in that with doing real estate and negotiate my own deals and, that kind of stuff. So, ultimately the real, full-time entrepreneurship came in when I left my corporate job to build a software company. And that was the company called ThePartyMatch. That was back in 2013. And I was doing my MBA and I learned how people really make money. They never taught us that in engineering school. When I literally week one, I was like, wow, so this is how people make money. Are you serious right now? And so I was like really consumed with it. And we had a Capstone Project where we actually had to come up with a business that could be venture backed. And from that, we went through 500 ideas. And out of those 500 ideas, I pulled that one and we worked on that one on the side. and the Capstone Project was something else, and it kind of took on a life of its own. I got contacted by Shark Tank, all kind of things happened, and within an 8-month time period. It was crazy. So that's where it started.
That's fascinating. I was just talking to Jerome earlier. I was reading this book, The 10-Day MBA. This is an older book.
No, I've read that before.
I was telling him, like, okay, so apparently there's something in a formal MBA program that you can get that you probably can't get from the book. Would you agree with that, or do you have a different opinion?
So I have my podcast, Unpolished MBA, where basically I voice that I don't think you need an MBA to be great at business or to be an entrepreneur. However, you have to be a person of great discipline, a person that wants to learn, a person that, is on a constant learning journey to absorb information and execute. And the thing is, most people are only trained to do that in an educational setting. So you learn in the classroom, then you got homework to do, and then you got a project, and then, right? So for people who can't do that on their own, it's really not a choice. In order to get the most that you can out of the information, some people need that formal setting. And so I'm not against it. All I know is that it was for me, it was worth every penny. It was worth every penny. And for some people, it wasn't worth anything. Well, it depends on what you do with it, right? So that's really where I stand on it. I don't believe you need it to be a great entrepreneur. But for some people, it actually gives them the confidence to become an entrepreneur, which that's a trend that's constantly stated on my podcast. Some people have MBAs, some people don't. And the common statement that's made with those that do have an MBA said, well, I don't think I would have had the confidence to go off on my own if I had not done, my MBA. So yeah, it's the information, but I would say more importantly, it's also the network that you gain there, that you really can't get, just on your own. It's something about the camaraderie of these universities, and how they're willing to help each other, and how the school is willing to help you too, because they want you to be successful to make them look good. So it's other forces at play besides you just reading a book and doing homework. It should be.
Okay. Very interesting. So let's go back to you pitching your company PartyMatch to the invitation-only casting for Shark Tank. Yeah. So what was that experience like, and did it differ from the typical pitch competition?
Oh, yeah. So first of all, I just want to say that I did not want to be on Shark Tank. I actually eventually I turned it down. I actually made it they wanted me to be on season 8. And I was, first of all, my company was way too young. I was not prepared for me. I wasn't prepared for the attention that would come with something like that. But the opportunity came because a local angel investor that I know, that knew of me here in Atlanta, actually pitched me to them unbeknownst to me. So when they came to town, they reached out to the people that had been referred to them, and I was one of those people. So as to not look a gift horse in the mouth, as my mom would say, although I was deathly afraid of it, because I am an engineer. Most engineers are introverts, just stereotypically, and I do fall into that category, although I've gotten more comfortable with, being less introverted. But needless to say, that totally went against all of my introverted tendencies. But the way they set it up, it was very private. It was one-on-one with the producers. It wasn't like you're standing on a stage pitching. It wasn't all of this commercialization, because they were literally looking to cast for the show. And so, I have a picture on my website, because some people knew about it when it happened. But some people are always surprised when you say that, because they're like, oh, I didn't see you on the show. And then they, when they asked me to turn in the secondary information for season 8, I told them I'm not interested, because I'm busy working on the business. I don't want to take time to prepare for a show. But secondly, as one of the producers said when I was talking to him about my you know, kind of just my thoughts about it. And just like, well, keep in mind, it is a show. So, you know, it's for entertainment. We love your story. We love the whole thing. You know, you're a Black woman, you're an engineer, you got this software. And right there tells me I don't want any involvement. I'm trying to build a company here. I don't want to be a local celebrity. So, you know, some people do it because they think it will bring them more customers and all that stuff. In reality, it does if you're selling a consumer product. But I'm not. I'm building a software company that's for commercial real estate. Like, who really cares if I'm on Shark Tank? So it really came down to that. But it was a very private casting. It was no long lines, nothing like that. You know, they had security at the door. We came in individually. They assigned us to different producers, and we, you know, pitched our quote unquote pitched our product to them. But it wasn't like you would do in a pitch competition. Mostly they ask you a lot about you because they already have researched your product, right? They've already looked it up. They know what it addresses. And so they're more interested in you and your story than necessarily the product.
Gotcha.
That's interesting. So with the product, you say you started a software company, developed software targeted towards real estate, realtors. So what came first? Was it the company or was it the product? Like, did the product turn into a company, or you started a company to generate a product?
Yeah, no. So actually, ThePartyMatch, the name of the company should have been changed. I just never changed it because it didn't matter. No one cared when I was selling. But it started out when I decided to do the MBA. I mentioned that we had a Capstone Project, which is like a thesis final project that you do in a master's program. And it was one of the ideas that came to me because being in real estate, you know, I love real estate. So even though I'm an engineer, I love real estate. I noticed that a couple of things was happening. There was less foot traffic in retail locations, and that was going to continue to happen because e-commerce was growing, right? Now, this was way before pandemic. Things that happen now, I tried to tell these companies back then, right? They didn't listen because it didn't hurt hard. It didn't hurt them enough back then. But I knew there was a lot of underutilized space because people were increasingly shopping from home. And so what ThePartyMatch started out, I actually named it that because I was like, well, the first thing I'll probably go after is my go-to market entry strategy. Of course, you do things, you test, it works or it doesn't work. I was like, I'm going to go to like event spaces. They are only used when there's a wedding or some, you know, a corporate event, but most of the time it's sitting there, you know, vacant. And most of those spaces you can get directly to the owner. You don't have to go through a sales team, corporate headquarters, none of that. And a lot of times it's like a passive investor that actually owns it. And then there's a on-site manager, and a lot of them, they get bonuses, they get paid based upon how much money they make there. So there was incentive, there was motivation, there was, you know, all types of things that came with that market entry strategy. And it was okay. Like when I first attracted my first investors, I had 12 customers. The problem was that I was not interested in doing that for the future of the company. It was just to work out the kinks in the technology, just to see if it's something people would adopt to. And that's great. But the big money is with the big retailers. So, you know, back before, you know, you see, retail locations combining into one location. That was my idea back then. That was what ThePartyMatch was going to turn into. So I'll give you an example of what has come to fruition. Right now, locations, there are about 5 or 6 locations now in the US where Kohl's and Aldi's have actually co-located into the same building. So because I have a lot of experience in building construction and in real estate, I know that what systems need to be in place, you know, all those kind of things, plus the business side of things, in order to put 2 different businesses together that serve the same customer, but sell different things. So that's why it was called ThePartyMatch. It was literally matching parties of people, you know, who had something in common, right? Right now, Kohl's and Aldi actually have co-located locations because Kohl's, as we know, anybody can go into a Kohl's location. It is never busy. I mean, half of the location could be put into half of the store, and has happened now. And the other side is actually Aldi's, which is groceries. They serve the same socioeconomic class of people. And if you look around the country, most Kohl's are located across the street or a block up from an Aldi. So those are the kind of things that I had. I would propose. Macy's was another one that I went after. Another one that's happening now is Planet Fitness and Kohl's are now co-locating.
And this is Kohl's, the supermarket?
No, Kohl's is like a JCPenney, standalone JCPenney kind of thing. Yeah. So that's just an example. So basically you can buy, I'll use Planet Fitness, which is a gym, and Kohl's. Well, you can, the thing is, you're not just in a building. You know how you see, let's think about restaurants. You know how you see Dunkin' Donuts and Taco Bell, like in the same building, right? They're both selling food, but one is selling the dessert and one is selling the meal. So it's similar to what Kohl's and Planet Fitness has done, where Kohl's sells everything: women's clothes, men's clothes, kids' clothes, everything. But a lot of people go there to buy their workout gear. Why not have a Kohl's inside of a Planet Fitness? Because I'll buy my workout gear from Kohl's because it's in here in the building, because I need more workout clothes. And Kohl's get to maintain their brand, not just sell items inside of Planet Fitness. Does that make sense? It's like, why would Taco Bell sell Dunkin' Donuts in their location? Let Dunkin' Donuts be separate, keep their brand, and customers will go from one door to the other, or one building to the other, one side to the other. But anyways, that was the software basically matched. It got the information on the building systems, the demographics, and like matched them together. But I was way before my time. So I spent a lot of time educating these businesses, even smaller ones, retailers. And what ended up happening was a lot of them hired me to be their consultant, because I'm explaining to them about marketing and how their value proposition and the customer demographics are changing and all this stuff. And they were just like, wow, well, can we pay you? So here I am trying to sell my software, but they want my service, right? They want me to guide them strategy wise. And that's really one of the ways I even started growing my consulting company.
Wow, that's amazing right there. Now, I have a question about real estate. So, with most of the real estate that you're focused on, is it more commercial? Is it also residential, or a combination of both?
Yeah, so now it's both. But when I first started out, it was all residential, and I was really just getting my feet wet because I was foolish like a lot of people. I started when we first had the first big explosion, right? In 2000 and when did I start investing? 2003. Okay. So that's when real estate prices were high and, people were getting these home equity. It was like a crazy market. And at that time, I had graduated college. I was a few years out. I had more money than I've ever had in my life. And I wanted to invest it because I heard that was the adult thing to do. Right. So I invested money into properties and it was great. But the thing was, I was like, wow, I can't believe we just invested money in something and did this whole transaction and I don't know enough about it. Like that's the most money I've ever spent in my life without really knowing the ins and out. And so I decided to go get my license. I was like, I don't want to rely upon an agent to give me access to properties. I also want to be able to move when I want to. And so it started with residential. And after my first big win, and what I mean is I sold the property before the market crashed. I sold the properties before the market crashed, and that allowed me to buy 4 and 5 other properties. But I learned that once you make that big, that home run, you need to invest that money into commercial, cash flowing commercial, because residential is a pain in the butt. So you don't I'm not a home flipper. See, I would buy properties and hold them.
Yeah. And I do that. My wife and I do the same thing right now. We're getting to the residential rental properties. And so we hold on to a property, we have someone's renting it, but it can be a problem. You don't make money
off of rentals.
You don't think so?
No, you make money when you sell it.
Well, I mean, yeah. But the passive income that you generate though.
No. So I always, it's so funny. I have these conversations with people all the time and they laugh at me because they're like, oh man, you're right. I'm like, go back, go run the numbers. So let's say I have someone renting a property from me and I'm earning, let's say $300 extra, right? Profit on it every month, right? That's just one property. Well, guess what? The AC goes out, $1,500. All that money's gone. You ain't made no money. Right. So it's not about, that's why it's important to buy not just the property, you want it to be in good shape, but also you're buying the area, you're looking, and you can always, think you're forecasting what's going to happen in the area. But I've made some bad buys. And when I say bad, which means I bought in areas that were, supposedly going in the upward direction and it didn't, it never went anywhere. So, you kind of make some speculations and go from there. But, ultimately the money is made when you sell it. Or another thing that residential can be used for is that you buy a property. Let's say it's a short sale, because I've bought a few short sales, which is basically you buying the house for less than what it's worth. And a lot of people do that and then take a home equity line of credit out and then use that money to buy another property, right? So that way you're making money, right? Even if that house itself isn't in an up and coming, neighborhood, you can still make money off of reinvesting the equity you get out of it into something else. And then, you can sell that or do whatever it is you want to do with it. But you'll never make six figures off of rent. One day, you just won't, but you will when you sell it.
That's true.
Just my 2 cents, and it's only just from experience. That's all.
We appreciate it.
Would you advise people not to do the renting, or just
no? I mean, everyone's situation is different, so I try to understand where people are. Like everyone's individual situation is different, and especially those who, like, if a big expense comes up and you don't have either the credit or the cash to take care of it, I would say stay away from residential. Commercial is I like it because it's cash flow. You put your money in, but you don't expect to take it out next year. You got about 15 years or so for it to sit in there, but you're getting a check every month, very similar to dividends, right? And stocks. So I would say residential is okay for those who have the money for when big things happen, a storm comes through, the roof needs repair, the HVAC. Those are your biggest expenses anyway. So HVAC, the heating, ventilation, air and control, and roofing. And if you can afford the expenses, get your big win and then reinvest that money. I wouldn't say reinvest it into buying more residential. I wouldn't, but to each their own. You could be DJ Envy if you want to.
Yeah, we're all trying to do that. Just kidding.
But listen, DJ Envy, he has this, see, that's the thing. A lot of people will look at him and be like, oh, he's telling people to go, just buy this house, just do this, just do that. Listen, I've been around when we had these market ups and downs. And, it's like, you guys remember that game, Hot Potato, growing up? Somebody gets stuck with it. It's like musical chairs. Somebody gets stuck with no chair. And guess what? A lot of people got stuck with no chairs in 2007, 2008 when the market crashed. And it's going to happen again. So, those strategies, if you have the bandwidth to sustain the property, even if people aren't paying rent and all, which I've done that before. Sometimes I've had properties. I remember when I first became a mother, I just did not have, my husband and I, we had property managers and stuff. They were awful. Number one, residential property managers are awful. Can we just be honest here? Okay, thank you. So the property manager was awful. So when my tenant's lease was up in this one property, I was like, you know what, we're not going to renew their lease. And we're just going to let the house sit and pay the mortgage. And it was such a load off. But if you can't afford to do that for a couple years, I wouldn't suggest doing it. I just wouldn't, because I know so many people whose credit has gotten messed up by playing around in real estate.
Okay. All right. So we're going to switch topics. That was some good stuff about real estate. But now let's talk about incubators, right? Mm-hmm. So and of course, you're a faculty member at Rochester Institute of Technology, the Advanced Technology Development Center, which is a tech incubator. So what's the importance of an incubator for entrepreneurs?
Well, it definitely gives you a level of support, that ongoing support. But I want to make sure that people understand the difference between an incubator and an accelerator. Because a lot of people say incubator, accelerator, and it's all the same thing, and they're just throwing it together. And it's like, no, actually, those are different things. An accelerator is usually an educational program with mentorship for a certain amount of time, like a 6-week thing, a 3-day thing, a 10-week thing, a 12-week thing, right? And then it's over. An incubator is typically what you go to when that's over, because then that's that ongoing support. They give you office space. You have people on staff who are actually hired and being paid to give you advice, to introduce you to people. A lot of incubators, especially public ones like the ATDC at Georgia Tech, we are not allowed to invest in the companies. Okay, so we can't take a private interest in these companies financially. So literally, we're all there, even though Georgia Tech pays us, but we're all there and available to the entrepreneurs because we want to see them succeed. That's it. We want to see them succeed. And if there is anything that we can do to help them, whether it's an introduction or with me, I spend a lot of time on strategy with them. Because a lot of them will come from, we have doctors, we have lawyers, we have people who were stay-at-home moms or dads, and they're getting into this tech thing. And so the way that they understood the world in their corporate world, or the way they understood the world as a consumer, is completely different as a startup. And so the way you go about starting a business, getting customers, creating a technology, hiring developers is not the same strategies that you used in your corporate career, where you had a brand, a company's brand around you, and also resources, right? So incubators are very, very important because they support you through the whole process. Now, you can't be there forever. Like at ATDC, most companies are there anywhere from 3 to max 4 years. But once they get to a couple of million in annual recurring revenue, they graduate the program. By then, they're able to, or they already have raised money from venture capitalists. They can afford commercial space in one of the high-rise buildings in downtown Atlanta, all of that. And they still remain members. They just don't need as much from us as, coaches and stuff.
When companies enter the incubator program, at what levels are they entering? Are they, scratch, on the backside of a napkin, or is it okay? We have customers. We kind of know what we want to do.
Yeah, so every incubator is different, but I can tell you about so I'm associated with other ones too, like Founder Institute out of Silicon Valley. I'm also associated with STEM to Market, and that one is even more specialized. So all of them are different. I can't give you a blanket answer, but I can tell you that all of them typically have a program where people are just coming to learn how the process works because they think they have an idea that they might want to pursue. And then there's the next level where it's like, all right, I have a product. I now want to start doing this full time. I haven't been funded yet, but I'm working on that, and I need some help with that. And that's one of the things that we help, founders do. In my work with incubators is we help them raise money. We introduce them to investors. We help with the pitch deck, all of that, right? We don't do it for you. We coach you through it. Okay. So yeah, then you have that level, and then you got the level where they've raised that seed round. They have enough money to hire people. They're really hitting the ground trying to scale the company, and that's typically a higher level. And then those people get specialized attention. So there's typically 3 levels of companies inside of these incubators, but there's always an entry level. I'm just interested to see what's going on, kind of, membership option.
So I just want to ask someone in your position, like, in your opinion, what do you think makes a good leader? Like, what are the tangible skills a leader must have in order to succeed or be a good leader?
Well, so I'm going to say all entrepreneurs are not leaders, and all entrepreneurs are not innovators, and all innovators are not entrepreneurs. Like, those are all different things. So you can be a great leader if you know how to influence and serve other people. It's because, being a leader is you got to know how it's not about you. It's about serving your customers, serving your employees, and making sure they have what they need. But not all leaders actually make great entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurs also have to be very organized and be able to, keep a lot of balls in the air at once, but also be great communicators and also be a great boundary setter. So yeah, and some people are great innovators, which means they know how to come up with great ideas or create things or devices and all of that, but there's no way that they would actually go out here and sell that to someone, right? There's no way they'd actually go out here and build a team to, set a marketing team, hire developers, get a website done, blah, 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 or bring on strategic partners. Like, they won't do that, but they know how to, create innovative things. So that's why I was saying there's a difference in the types of people. You need to figure out which one you are. I would say that advice to anyone, but sometimes you don't know until you try it. So don't be afraid to try.
Monique, you've had the opportunity to observe companies, I'm sure from the beginning to, you said millions earlier. So what's the fastest you've seen someone go from idea to a profitable company?
Well, okay, so let me just make one thing clear. In the tech startup world, profitability is not prioritized. So I would say if it's a service company, you can go from 0 to profitability immediately. I mean, if you have a service company, but in tech companies, that's profitability, especially ones that raise venture capital. They're delaying that gratification of, it being a really profitable company until, after they're acquired or do an IPO or something. So profitability, and even then it's not, a lot of them aren't profitable. Uber, WeWork, can the list go on? We got ones that are publicly traded right now that are not profitable. So I can't tell you that, I even know one besides companies that are service companies.
That's an interesting mind shift. I mean, for someone that's not coming from a tech background to say, hey, I want to start a business. It's gonna be in debt for years until some type of shift has happened or optimization happens.
It's scary to most people, but see, here's the thing. This is where that MBA can't come in, y'all, because this is what I learned week 1. I was like, are you kidding me? All of these companies that we buy from, all of these brands that we wear and we know, most of their value is in debt. Everything that they use to operate is other people's money. It's either debt or equity. And what I mean by equity is they've sold shares in the company to people like you and me and other people who have 401ks and pensions and all that. So we own a part of that company, right? And then they borrow. So all of the company is made up of is debt and equity. And that means none of that is their quote unquote their money. Does that make sense? But it allows them to operate and earn money, to pay shares, to pay people, to pay dividends, to pay vendors. You see what I'm saying? So there is profitability in these major companies, right? Because that's really how they're able to pay dividends and stuff. But ultimately, it's OPP. It's the ultimate OPP. And that's what I learned week 1. So once you understand that, the whole I'm taking on debt for business, it should not be fear.
Good to know. So name of your company is TPM Focus. So what's the significance of the name?
Well, TPM stands for a lot of things. I mean, technology, project management consulting is what we say ultimately, because that's the foundation of who we are and how we operate things. We're 100% focused on revenue. So see, that's the difference. You'll have people that are coaching and, they have coaching businesses and they say we're consulting, but when anyone comes to me, the total focus is, okay, so how are we making money? Okay, you're doing this and that's not going to make you money. This, if you adjust it to this, and this, and then the resources that you told me you have here, if you move these resources here, this is how you'll make that money. And so we're 100% focused on companies earning revenues. So we're revenue based, but we do it by following the philosophies of PMP, how we manage things, how we operate things, how we, especially on the technology side, everything is touched by technology these days. And you'd be surprised how many companies are still afraid to use tools to scale their business. A lot of what we do is we'll help one of the things we do is we'll help new product launches for tech companies. And a lot of times they're even afraid to use other tech to help, with their processes. So implementing technology, using it, but basically anything to do with new product launches is what we're involved in.
Which component of that is it? You mentioned revenue, but are there other components like marketing?
Yeah, so everything feeds into that. So we help align your marketing, your sales, your technology, and your customer success with your revenue goals. All of those things are required and should not be operating in silos. They're all interconnected. And so goals should be tied to each other because realistically it is. If marketing doesn't do their job, then it makes things harder for sales. And if sales don't do their job, it makes things harder overall for the company to even exist. And if customer service is not prioritized, oh, good luck with keeping customers, right? And so everything ties back to the money. It's so funny because I had a consultation with a client the other day, and we're talking about things that they want, strategies, right? Goals and objectives that they want for the company. And I'm like, well, how's the money looking? What is it? What is the reason? This is a new client. What are you charging? Like, what are you planning to charge and why? And we go through pricing strategies, like everything, because all of it is interconnected. You don't want someone just telling you what's nice to post on social media. That's a waste of money. That all has to be tied back into sales and the objectives of your customer. What value do they get? If they don't get any value from it, don't post it. Just leave the Facebook page blank because it's not helping anybody and no one's going to look at it. So anyways, I'm very, if you look at some of my reviews on my LinkedIn profile, people will say, yeah, she cuts to the chase. Like she gets to the white meat because I don't want to waste anyone's time. Time is money, and businesses go out of business because they run out of money because they took too long to take action and figure these things out. And so, that's what I love. It keeps me up at night working and doesn't feel like work. So I really, really enjoy what I do.
Okay. So what are some the biggest challenges that your company is facing?
Well, my company isn't facing any challenges right now. I would say personally, we're doing well and have been, especially even through the pandemic, because a lot of people realized how inefficient they were and how much money they were wasting and how their inability to adapt technologies was actually in their way. Like I don't work with restaurants, but a few of them I helped through a grant that Georgia Tech had, and they asked some of us to help. And so I worked with a couple of restaurants and they were like shocked at the things I was telling them. And I'm like, okay, some of them literally went out of business for refusing to provide delivery.
Wow.
A lot of them went out of business for refusing to even put a menu online.
Crazy.
I mean, simple things that could, but they're like, oh, but then I got to hire a developer and then I got to do this. I'm like, no, just use a landing page system. What's a landing page? Like, just put up a landing page, put what you got, put some links on it. Like, the thing is, it sounds very simple to us because this is what we do every day. But to those people, especially for restaurant owners, I can honestly say that most of them, that's why I don't consult for restaurants. Their margins is small. They're really stressed. They're not making a lot of money, and therefore they don't listen to sound advice. They're afraid to make these changes and implement these things. They feel like it's going to cost me money. They can't focus on what the ROI is going to be in productivity and enable them to earn more money. But during the pandemic, it actually got a lot of them to be quiet and listen. And it was time for a lot of them.
That's interesting. Are there industries that you feel like there are other industries you feel like they're inefficient or could use more consulting to improve their processes?
I mean, all of them. I mean, I think we can all stand some improvement. The thing is, there's so much happening right now, especially on the tech side of things, in regards to marketing and making sales processes more efficient. But I think we really need to address whole industries like education, right? How can we make that better? There's even things where we rely upon they talk about in a lot of the lower paying jobs where they could actually reskill those people. So, job training and, helping people learn these new technologies and moving them into the future is so important. So it still keeps going back to me to education and figuring out the best way to do that. And everyone, it's an app for this, is an app for that, but nothing is cohesive and really collaborative, because I think we can do a better job, especially in K through 12.
So when someone wants consultation from you, like what data do you need in order to begin that consultation?
Well, first of all, I don't charge hourly rates. That's one thing that I have a lot of consultants reach out to me and be like, how do you do all these things? You're a professor, you're research faculty, you have a consulting company, you have a real estate company. Under your consulting company, you have a marketing company. And I'm like, yeah, that's because, it's just one of those things. You have to be organized, but you also have to put systems and things in place so you're not driving yourself crazy. So I don't do hourly pricing. There is no free consultation, free 15-minute time. When I tell consultants, you need to have value-based pricing. Like, what do people get out of the service that you provide to them? And so that's really where it's at for me. So if people want to get a consultation from me, it's typically those who already follow me on LinkedIn or know someone who knows me or know someone from, the networks that I'm in as far as incubators or in the business community. I have a long engineering career. So I know lots of different people across the country. And so a lot of all of my stuff comes inbound. I don't do anything outbound, which is a blessing. So yeah, most people reach out and say, I want to spend time with you. And my assistant will probably respond and say, well, she doesn't do free consultations. Are you interested in a package? Here's an option. And that's where we start. From there, she sends over a form and it'll ask them the challenges in their business. Like, it asks them specific questions. And then from there, it's all the same stuff for most businesses. And literally at this point, between coaching and strategy for all of the incubators and things that I'm involved with, including my own business, I've literally been inside of hundreds of businesses. It's all the same stuff. So.
That's interesting. Wow. Do you consult other consultants?
No. And that's the other thing. So they'll reach out to me. It's interesting how if you have certain information that other people find valuable, they will try to befriend you so they don't have to pay. But see, I'm smarter than that. Yeah, we're fellow consultants, but you know what? This is a great introductory. Like, I'd love to know more about you. Maybe we can collaborate. Sure. We'll have a 15-minute call or, get to know each other. And then I'll get a message later. Hey, I need to pick your brain. No, there's a fee for that. And so friendship doesn't equate to an engagement. So no, I don't consult consultants because they typically they're not financially in the ideal client profile that I have for my company. And that's one thing that a lot of entrepreneurs fail to do because they just really want to earn some money for their business. So they'll accept people that's outside of their ideal client profile and it makes their life miserable. I don't do that. I know I see it with other companies. So I know better, but I don't consult with consultants, but I'm sure they figure it out even by following some of the things I post on LinkedIn. It's applicable to not just tech companies.
Yeah, and I looked at your LinkedIn and I learned some things definitely over the past week when I was looking to learn more about you. So definitely, there's a lot of good information that you post out there.
Thank you.
So we've been on this call for almost an hour. what's something that we didn't ask you that you want the audience, the listening audience, to know?
Something that you didn't ask me. Well, so here's the thing. I would just say I would want any audience to know that, first of all, right now, entrepreneurship is being touted as the sexy thing, the in thing. And I just want to say, don't feel guilty if you don't want to do it. It's not for everybody. Or if you did it and it didn't quite work out the way that you expected it, and you had to go back into your, career, your corporate job, whatever it is. So what? I want to let them know that a lot of entrepreneurs are actually very miserable. They can't pay their bills. They're worried about payroll, all of those things that you don't have to worry about as an employee. And so don't be fooled by the Instagram posts and things like that. Like, I'm very, very honest with people about how it actually works. But I also do something that most people don't do, is I share how much things cost. So people are like, oh, I can just get some developers to do this, and that, and this and that. I'm like, okay, what does your technology need to do? And they have a list of like 100 features. And I'm like, all right, you got $100,000 for that?
All right.
Can you figure out how to do this in 10? 10? I'm like, that's the least you're going to be able to get something done. They're like, that's how much it costs? Well, I need marketing. Do you have about $3,000 to $5,000 to spend every month? And that doesn't include the ads. They're like, oh, it costs that much? Yeah. And if you want somebody to manage the ads, that'll be about $2,000 a month. What? Right. And this is when you're not even enterprise. You're just getting started. You're just a small business. And you're like, why? I mean, why does things cost so much? Because people have to get paid and they have bills to pay. And so you're someone who has bills to get paid and need to get paid. And it's okay if you do that from your corporate job. Don't get fooled by the Instagram posts.
Well, thank you. This has been very impactful for me. Someone who's also I'm taking a class on project management, trying to fill my toolbox up with these terminologies and processes that could ultimately improve the outcome of projects. Thank you for taking the time with us. What's the best way for people to reach out to you if you wanted them to kind of follow you online?
Yeah, so I always send people just to my, they can go to my company page, of course, tpmfocus.com, but they can also go to moniquemills.biz because from there you can actually launch to my LinkedIn and other things like that. I'm on LinkedIn, but my name is common. So I have the acronyms on the end, MBA, PMP. So they can look for me there at Monique Mills. But that's it. Or you can Google me. I swear you'll find me somewhere. Page 1, page 2.
Yes. We want to definitely thank you. Thank you for being a guest today. You definitely dropped some valuable jewels to the listening audience, to us. And I mean, we learned a lot from you, from commercial to residential real estate. Definitely was very helpful in discussion for me. But yeah, definitely. Yeah, we just love all the knowledge you dropped. We definitely appreciate it.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
That wraps up this episode of the Disruptive Podcast by Minority Innovation Weekend. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe. Check us out online at www.minorityinnovationweekend.org and connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn.